fifth best catcher of the 1970s, Pittsburgh Pirates great Manny Sanguillen. Manny didn't start playing baseball until he joined a church baseball group at the age of 19. 2 years later, he was signed as a professional. During the 1970s, Manny would receive MVP votes in 4 different seasons, was a 3-time All-Star, and twice helped the Pittsburgh Pirates win the World Series championship. During those 2 postseason championship years, Manny would hit .341 and .333. 5 times in the 1970s, Manny would finish with a .290 or better batting average, including twice hitting .325 or higher, and twice, both in 1970 and 1975, he would finish 3rd in the race for the batting title. For the decade, he had 60 home runs, over 500 RBIs, and nearly scored 500 runs. In 1972, Manny had planned on joining a relief mission to Nicaragua, but he ended up not being able to find his car keys and thus missed the airplane. That plane ended up crashing and killing his Hall of Fame teammate, Roberto Clemente. Carlton Fisk is best remembered for his dramatic home run in the 12th inning of Game 6 of the 1975 World Series. You can picture him running down the first baseline, trying to steer the ball fair. It ended up hitting the foul pole, and the Red Sox won the game, went on to Game 7, which, unfortunately for them, they lost to the mighty Cincinnati Reds and their Big Red Machine. In 1972, Carlton Fisk would become the first player ever to unanimously win the Rookie of the Year award. He finished 4th in MVP voting that season and also won the Gold Glove award for a catcher. In 1974, a brutal collision at home plate injured Carlton Fisk's knee rather badly, and he was told that he will probably never play again. But of course he did. He went on to appear in 6 All-Star games in the 1970s, and 1977 was probably his best year. He had 26 homers, 102 RBIs, 106 runs scored, and batted .315 for the season. For the decade, Fisk had 144 homers, over 500 RBIs, and over 500 runs scored. He retired with the most home runs ever hit by a catcher, and he still to this day holds the American League record for most home runs by a catcher. The third best catcher of the 1970s was St. Louis Cardinals switch-hitting Hall of Famer Ted Simmons. Simmons was a 6-time All-Star who hit 20 or more home runs 4 times, 5 times had 90 or more RBIs, including twice when he had over 100. He batted over 300 5 times, including in 1975 when he batted .332 and finished 2nd in the batting title chase. Twice during the decade he caught no-hitters, including Bob Gibson's no-hitter in 1971. At the time of his retirement, he led all catchers in career hits and doubles. He was 2nd on the all-time list for RBIs, trailing only Hall of Famer and New York Yankees legend Yogi Berra. For his career, he had 248 home runs, 1,400 RBIs, 2,500 hits, and a batting average of .285. And that leads us to the second best catcher in the 1970s, and that is none other than New York Yankees legend Thurman Munson. Thurman was the 4th overall pick in the 1968 draft, and in his first ever Major League Baseball game, he went 2 for 3 with a walk, an RBI, and 2 runs scored. He would win the 1970 Rookie of the Year award and go on to become what most would call the heart and soul of the New York Yankees. In 1976, he would be named the American League MVP with 17 home runs, 105 RBIs, 79 runs scored, and a batting average of .302. Thurman was a 7-time All-Star that would hit over 300 5 times. He would have over 100 RBIs 3 times, and also 3 times he would score more than 80 runs. Outstanding fielding catcher, he would also win 3 Gold Gloves during the decade. He would lead the New York Yankees to 2 World Series championships, and his career postseason batting average was .357. Thurman was a private airplane pilot, and despite his flight instructor saying that he had above average skills and judgment as a pilot, In 1979, while practicing his takeoffs and landings, he crashed his airplane and was killed. Fortunately, the two passengers that were also in the plane with Munson both survived, and they credit Munson with having never panicked and thus saved their lives. The day after Munson's death, the New York Yankees paid tribute to their captain by taking their defensive positions on the field, but leaving the catcher's box empty. A moment of silence, followed by the singing of America the Beautiful, caused the sellout crowd to erupt in an 8-minute-long standing ovation. Only at the last moment before the game started did the Yankees send out a catcher to take Thurman Munson's usual position. Thurman Munson's locker position was never again used, and it stood empty next to Derek Jeter's locker until 2008 when the stadium was closed. And the number one catcher of the 1970s, Gary Carter. I'm only kidding. Everybody knows it was Johnny Bench. Johnny Bench was one of the greatest catchers of all time. Bench was a 2-time MVP, a 10-time All-Star, and an 8-time Gold Glove winner. If you could cut Bench's numbers into two, he would take first and second on this list. He led the league in homers twice, RBIs 3 times, led the Reds to 2 World Series championships, and he was the 1976 World Series MVP. In 45 postseason games, Bench hit 10 home runs, had 20 RBIs, and scored 27 times. And if all that wasn't enough, he was also the 1968 Rookie of the Year. For the decade, he had 290 home runs, over 1,000 RBIs, and nearly 800 runs scored. For his career, he had over 2,000 hits, 389 home runs, and nearly 1,400 RBIs. In 1999, the Sporting News named Johnny Bench the 16th best baseball player of all time and the greatest catcher of all time.